To Me Bones, the original game that I reviewed earlier last year, was just an average to below average experience, and because of that, I gave it 5 out of 10. Now, since then, I was told to try Undertow, as that was the next game that came out, and it was said to be a much deeper experience that was more dynamic, characters to play with as well. So after 50-some playthroughs, what has my final thoughts been about the game, and where do I stand compared to the base game? For those who don't want to hear me go into details and just want the final numerical value, give this game a 7 out of 10. It fixes a lot of the big flaws, I thought, in the base game, but not enough to stand out as a great game. It's just got past the average, and maybe it's because the base game was such an unpleasant experience long term. Maybe that's why this game is just so much better in that sense. So 7 out of 10. Now the strange thing is, I had Undertow when I bought the base game, and I never opened it because I assumed it was just the same game, just different characters and baddies. But after the original review, I decided I will take it out and give it a go. And right away, I was very pleased with the changes that they made in many departments of the game. So let's focus on the good changes first and the experience and go from there. The battle map. One complaint I had was the original battle map was so undynamic. The battle map had changes done to it in Undertow. There's a raft side and a land side, and each side a small amount of changes where the base game lacked tremendously. Also, raft side you will encounter Krillin type enemies, and on the land side you'll encounter mechs, which play differently. This change was by far the best change made to the game. This helps make encounters not just sound different on the text of the cards, but 2 different battle maps to play on. The changes wasn't a huge change, but it was a great change. It was like just it. They just changed the map a little bit, and it was wonderful. The enemies also had some changes, and this is another area where I found a lot more pleasant. Each enemy type and keywords felt like they were actually thought through and not just keywords to just add different effects. My favorite was the one of the thief guy who on rounds 2 and 4 runs away and steals 1 item from you, but if you kill him, you get to roll dice and possibly get a trove loot. Really great design, just great. Each enemy was more thoroughly reviewed and processed. Just good job. The old one, the base game, just enemies. That's all it was. The counter cards were all more enjoyable to read, as there was a sense that they spent time going over each one to add humor or puns. Though it felt like less encounter cards, the game felt more richer in encounter experiences. Only gripe I still have is the vocabulary they use. I found myself during the first reads through many of the encounter cards going online and trying to understand certain words meant. Not a bad thing, but for sure an annoying thing. I don't know why the vocabulary goes the way it does. I mean, just call it a goat. Don't call it whatever it was. Mark, he was there to help me understand that. Characters were, in my opinion, better than all 4 original characters in the base game. They are more complicated and harder to understand at first, but much more variety of options, as each dice seemed to be more evaluated in the sense of its purpose and its use. For anyone wondering how much more complex, I would say in the base game there's a rage character, and if that was a 5 out of 10, these characters are about 8 to 9 out of 10 in complexity. But here's the weird thing. The more complexity there was only made learning them, for me, more exciting. The base game characters' charm faded after 4 playthroughs, where here I found myself enjoying playing them longer on, because now I'm actually understanding the dynamics. In the base game, it was just, okay, very simple. The rulebook still has some reasons. Rulebook still has some reasons of annoyances for me. Man, I don't know why I had a hard time again with the rulebook. I love Cloudspire 2.0 rulebook, but here it's like every time I open to reference a rule, I'm still not sure where to look, and without a rule reference, it just doesn't help. So it's still, I want to say difficult, but very annoying to find specific answers. The explanations for the new mechanics regarding the Krillin and the mechs seemed harder to understand than explained. I don't know why. I had a hard time understanding. I always recycle back to them, especially when the battle mat, when you put them in, put them up. I would say it hadn't changed much from the original base game. Same thing. The rulebook just neat. I don't know. It just doesn't flow good. Maybe that's just. But here's the thing: Cloudspire 2.0 rulebook flows wonderfully. So I don't know. It's not Chip Theory Games. I wonder if they just don't want to change the rulebook dramatically. Another thing, which I was so happy they included in Undertow game, was the campaign-like playthrough. In the base game, you have 40 Days Daily expansion, which was just not clean or smooth implementation of campaigns, of a campaign-like game. And here, they reviewed and updated and made it play smoother. It's pretty much a free expansion with this standalone game and that never came with the base game, which is like awesome. So the game is cheaper, and then you get, I don't know what it is, like a $40 free expansion added on. Why a 7 out of 10? That's a good question. If all these changes sounded like, if all these changes sound like great, you know, well, this is where I wonder if this is just a preference thing or if it's truly the game. And I've been thinking about it a bit about myself. I love Cloudspire. I love Rune Wars, the board game. I love Star Wars Destiny, the card/dice game. Beat all of Gloomhaven. And I love Company Heroes. I find that maybe it's the dice that have a hard time, that I find hard to enjoy about the game. There are so many times I roll bad rolls, 2 times in a row, and on hard difficulty, I'm just dead. It's not much forgiveness in this game, but I love Star Wars Destiny, and I have no problem with the bad rolls there. But maybe that's because mitigation is easier to attempt in Star Wars Destiny. Maybe it's the fact that I still find characters build aren't as dynamic as they seem with the first 10 games. But in Gloomhaven, the character builds are less dynamic. Because as you level up, you only get 2 cards. You know what I mean? So from going from level 1 to level 9, you only ever get, here's 18 cards you could choose from. You know what I mean? Get the one, you can't get the other. But then you have a market, but the problem is, not really a problem, but the thing is you have a market in Gloomhaven. And the market cards, you can make purchases that fit your playstyle. They have a whole nother key to it, you know, that Undertow doesn't provide. It's the fact that the story lore in Undertow didn't catch my attention. Well, here's the thing. Cloudspire lore is completely unknown to me, though I've played the game the most, and it's one of my top games. I couldn't tell you what about the Grease, or the Heirs, or the Uprising, anything. I don't know the lore, I don't know the back history, I don't know why Bronin exists, nothing. But I can tell you exactly how the factions play and a good strategy to approach each units. Maybe I'm just not a lore person, you know. So why 7? It just did enough to be better than the base game, but not enough to stand out. Company Heroes base game and the 2.0 version are totally different games, even though the components are almost the same. And here, a standalone game from the base game, just in too many ways, feels like the same clunky base game. It still doesn't have that appeal for me. Would I recommend buying it over the base game? It's a tough question because Undertow is more complex in character and the battle mat, but the base game is extreme vanilla. I would say I won't ever play the base game again now that I have Undertow. Would never see a point for it. I'll take some characters out to take to Undertow, but I don't know if I would have enjoyed Undertow as much if I didn't play the base game. Buy it if you're willing to invest a lot of money, a lot of time in finding the clarities for the different keywords. As I think if you're going to buy it, I would say forget about the base game. Just buy this version. Yes, you have only 2 characters. You know what I mean? I don't even know if there's even less baddies, but it's better. This is way better than the base game. So where does that leave me then? Well, selling my base game with all my 3 expansions, and I'm also selling Undertow with Gilly. Why? Because I ordered Unbreakable, the standalone expansion, standalone game, standalone expansion. I want to have hopes that I can find enjoyment in this game, and I do think Unbreakable might be it. Thanks for watching. And that chose even an easier option here too, so it's not like I chose the harder option. Holy. Okay, we got past the first one. This is a tough character to play. It starts with 1 attack, 1 defense, so you start so behind. I can barely kill it on target, a one-on-one. Nuts. But we did get past. That's the good thing. Okay.